to the Living While Loving Your Child Through Addiction podcast. Here, we focus on self care as we tend to our own lives while also extending love and compassion to our kids. This podcast offers science backed skills to bring hope and healing to your entire family. This episode today comes from my own curiosity in noticing that, well, it felt this way for me, and it feels this way for so many other moms that I work with. They want to say no, but they can't. So, why is it so hard? Why is it so painful for a mom to say no? Like, why does it feel like we're dying inside when we say no? Even though we know that logically it's the right thing to do. And when we set a boundary, though, we're afraid that we're going to lose the relationship or that it's going to cause damage to the relationship. So I wanted to dig into what's really happening here, not just emotionally, but at this deepest human level. And I know you're going to find it validating because we're so often criticized or judged or labeled because this is so hard for us. But really, the problem is why it's so hard. It's not because we're broken or because there's something wrong with us. It's because, well, there's many reasons. One of them being our motivational triad, which if you've worked with me, I talk about this in the introduction to the Peace of Mind written program. So if you want to dig a little bit deeper into that, you can go find that introduction module. But the motivational triad is the way that the human brain is wired to survive. Our brains are programmed to number one, to seek pleasure, number two, to avoid pain, and number three, to conserve energy. So when we say no, especially to something like giving money, we're violating all three parts of that system at once. We're choosing pain over comfort. We're resisting the temporary relief of just doing something, anything, and we're expending more emotional energy to do something different when we set or hold a boundary. So, totally makes sense that that feels awful. Of course, your whole body resists doing that. It goes against the wiring that we've had since the beginning of time. But it goes even deeper than that because it's not just about biology, it is also about love and fear and grief, guilt. Love is important to us moms, how we express that love. And for a lot of us, money can be part of our language. It becomes a form of a way to connect with our kids. And especially when the relationship is really struggling and there isn't much availability for connection, and we feel like we're walking on eggshells trying to maintain the relationship, giving can create a feeling of closeness when there isn't much opportunity for that. And it also makes us feel relevant in our kids' life and like we're doing something to help them. But then when we stop giving, this isn't just a financial decision. It feels like we are ripping away that final piece of connection that was available to us. And then that's followed by our kids' anger or silent treatment. And that's absolutely heartbreaking. It makes us feel disposable. And that kind of emotional whiplash is absolutely brutal. But It's not just that feeling of rejection and all that other stuff that we're trying to avoid, it's also the guilt. Because then the second that we say no, all the what ifs rush in. What if this time they really needed it and they weren't lying? What if they get hurt and I could have prevented it? What if this time giving money actually would have changed things for the better? So when we give resources like money, food, or shelter, that lights up the caregiving circuit in our brain and it releases oxytocin and it reduces our anxiety. Now, it doesn't last, it's only brief, but giving helps us to soothe that anxiety we feel about not being able to fix it. So, even when we know that giving money actually isn't going to help, it still feels like we're doing something. And doing something feels better than doing nothing, even if it comes at a cost. And the cost there is that, or the cost of the relief that you feel temporarily when you give, is the resentment that follows, and the shame, and the regret that you did it again, even though you didn't want to. Because deep down, you know that you didn't want to, you know that it's not going to be helpful, but you're just trying to stop feeling so awful inside. And to make it even more complicated, our nervous system wires around patterns, our behavior patterns. Even unhealthy patterns are hardwired so that they can become part of our autopilot system to conserve energy. Remember, conserving energy is part of that motivational triad. So if we have spent years giving in response to our kids' distress, then our brain actually interprets that pattern of behavior is safe because taking the same actions to our brain equals safety. And that's because if it kept us alive this long, then we need to keep doing it. So even though we want to do things differently, we freeze or we panic and we give in again just to calm all of that resistance that's happening in our body about going against the motivational triad when we do something different. But every time we say no, we're also confronting grief. That grief that the relationship that we hoped that we would have with our kids, or the one that we used to have with them, or the one we hope to have in the future, that's not there. Every no, when we lose that little bit of connection that we've been getting, reminds us of what we've lost. We've lost the dream of what we thought our parenting experience would look like. And we have lost the dream of what we thought our kids' life would look like. And some of us have lost ourselves in this too. So saying no isn't just painful because we're weak or we're doing it wrong or there's something wrong with us. It's painful because we are biologically wired for connection, for our survival. And the fear of losing our kids isn't just emotional, it's existential. From the moment we become mothers, our brain and body are wired to prioritize attachment above everything else because that is how humans survive. We have to bond with our kids or they don't survive. We have to stay close to the person who keeps us safe or we die. That wiring never turns off, it just gets more complicated. And when connection is threatened, even by something as small as a boundary, our body treats it like danger. It feels like there's a tiger coming after us. And research shows that emotional pain lights up the same part of our brain as a physical injury or physical pain. And that's why moms say things like, I can't breathe when he doesn't answer the phone, or it feels like a knife in my chest. That's not them being dramatic. That is the physical accompaniment of that intense emotional pain that they're experiencing. And another thing is moms, our identity is wrapped up in this role that we have. We don't just love our child, we're their mom. They are a part of us. They lived in our body. So when that bond feels broken, it hurts. And that's why we keep on giving, because we're holding on to that love the only way that we know how. So let's switch gears and talk about what's happening, some of what's happening in our kids when we say no, when we stop giving money. And this part is so misunderstood. It's so hard because most of us were taught to label our kids' reactions as manipulative and self centered or classic addiction behavior. But what looks like manipulation is often a nervous system in survival mode. And what looks like disrespect is a person full of shame. So when we stop giving, especially money, our kids might explode, they might guilt trip, they might go silent, say horrible things, and it hurts like hell for all the reasons that we've discussed. But it's so important to remember that their behavior is not about you. It is not about whether they love you. It is not about the money, even. It's about what the money represents to them, especially in their nervous system. When they're using substances, they're, of course, physically and emotionally dysregulated, often in very unsafe conditions. So the world feels unsafe. And when we set a boundary, even if it's a loving, clear one, at first, their brain isn't going to process it like, oh, my mom's just holding a boundary to protect both of us because she loves me, right? Their brain says, oh, we're on our own now. She's given up on us, right? That's not their logical brain. That's that primitive brain that is in survival mode. It's their nervous system panicking just like ours does. It just plays out in a different way. It's that fear of losing connection with the person they need most. Maybe the only person who's still showing up for them. And another thing is that not getting money can mean that they're going to end up sick. If they're physically dependent on substances, they're in fear of experiencing withdrawals, and money would keep them from that. So it just adds another layer there, of what their brain is considering survival. And our kids' behavior makes sense once you understand what's underneath it. Our behavior makes sense once you understand what's underneath it. But I want to make sure that I say this and that I'm really clear about I am not saying that you should give in and excuse the behavior. I am in no way saying you should excuse or tolerate it. That is not what this is about. What it's about is understanding what's underneath the behavior so that we don't take it so personally. That doesn't mean we don't protect ourselves from it, but that also means we don't use it against ourselves and hurt ourselves more with it. We want to respond from a place of being very calm and regulated, because what most parents are doing and what I was doing I've shared this a lot is I was constantly going from one extreme to the other where I would give in and I would try to fix things and do whatever I could to avoid the pain of disconnection. Or I would shut down, disconnect, brace for impact. Who knows what's coming because we just don't know what else to do. But there is another way, and that's what this episode is about. There's another way of relating and staying connected that isn't consumed by fear and that doesn't keep us stuck in reactivity and constantly questioning ourselves. Because most of us end up in what I call the survival cycle. And it sounds like if I say no, they're going to disappear. If I set a boundary, I'm going to lose what I have left of this relationship. If I don't help, then I'm a bad mom, right? So we give in out of panic. We are trying to connect in the middle of a crisis. We react instead of responding intentionally because we're so scared. That's the survival cycle. And even though it's painful, it's also familiar. And remember that our brains prioritize familiarity over change, even if that familiarity isn't good for us. But that is not connection. It is a survival based attachment. And it is built on constant fear of losing connection. And it's transactional, it's very fragile, and it is so emotionally loaded because of all of the fear involved. And our brains are also geared towards paying more attention to things that cause fear. And that's driving all of our actions, but that is not real connection. That is connection for safety. And it doesn't feel good. It's not good for the relationship. It's just an attempt to get our needs met, but we're attempting to get our needs met in a way that doesn't meet them. The way that we get our needs met is what I call connection for the just the sake of connection, not to fix, not to control, not to prevent something from happening, just to be with each other, just to say, I love you. I see you. And I want to be in your presence right now, just as you are in this very moment. I totally accept you. And this connection is not dependent on good behavior. It's not withdrawn when boundaries are set. It is, it doesn't require your child to be okay for you to love them. It is the kind of connection that our kids need, whether they realize it or not. They might even deny that they need it. And it's the kind of connection that we deserve to give and receive as well, because when we build connection for the sake of connection, it feels so amazing. That is where trust starts to grow again. That's where safety gets rebuilt. That's where healing becomes possible for all of us. I went through this with Helena. For most of my life, I was stuck in that survival cycle. I was in relationships that were transactional and they were exhausting and always just out of the reach of being fulfilling. I didn't know what real connection was. I wanted it, but I didn't know how to let it in. But I learned and I found that connection for the sake of connection with Helena. And when I did that, all of my relationships changed. There was this feeling that I had inside of me for so long that I had more love to give. Well, I really noticed it as a mom. I knew that there was more love inside of me to give, but I always felt like something was blocking it. And I couldn't be vulnerable long enough to truly connect, even though I really wanted to. But now I can love wholeheartedly. There's absolutely nothing stopping it. And that's available to you too. You can feel so much better about yourself as a mom when your actions are aligned with your values and your desires rather than fear and guilt. And I know you can do it because you've already made it through so much. You've made it through things that most parents don't even understand. And in the middle of that, you've kept loving and showing up and trying again, even when it hurts. And the other thing is this survival pattern, it had a purpose when you had no idea what else to do. So offer yourself a huge dose of compassion for that. And then just start imagining what is possible now if you focus on overriding your motivational triad. Think about all the amazing things that you're already doing right in the middle of this hard thing. Don't expect perfection as you try to leave this survival cycle. It's going to feel uncomfortable. Expect resistance, but also expect growth. Growth feels good. And so don't give up on yourself because it takes practice. You deserve this new kind of connection. When we leave that survival cycle and we enter the connection cycle, which I just made up because I know the next question is going to be, Heather, how do we do this? So let me tell you what the connection cycle is. This is that new pattern that you want your brain. We've got that neuroplasticity. We can rewire our brains, we can change our behavior patterns. And the new pattern would be pausing to regulate your nervous system, responding from love and your values rather than fear, setting boundaries from love and not trying to control, allowing discomfort without rushing to fix it, allowing the grief, staying present, being consistent. Continue rebuilding that trust and emotional safety and just keep repeating that. The new thing that you might say from this pattern when your child asks for money is something like, I'm not giving you money right now because it doesn't feel like I'm helping you when I do. But I love you and I'm here for you in ways that I feel are truly helpful. And when you're able to regulate and show up with consistency, that creates safety for your child. And it's what rewires their nervous system and ours. It creates that safety for us too. And once our nervous system is rewired, then we don't have to overgive anymore. We start to value that unconditional love and unconditional presence the most. So before I wrap up this episode, I want to be really clear about something. I am not, I repeat, I am not telling you that you shouldn't or can't give your child money. In fact, I'm not telling you what to do at all. That is not what this episode is about. This is about when you decide from a place of reflection, your values, love, when you have decided for yourself that giving money or rides or paying bills or saying yes to whatever isn't what's best, rather than making that decision from fear, guilt, and panic, right? You're making it from a place of clarity. This episode is about what happens after that. There are times you might want to give your child money, and I trust that you know what's best. So when your decision is anchored in love, it's still going to be hard to hold that boundary. It's still going to hurt. It's going to trigger that guilt, panic, doubt, grief, but at least you'll understand what's happening better now. You won't be beating yourself up for it, hopefully. You'll be able to give yourself some grace and compassion for your humanity. It's just the humanity of what it means to love your child and choose a different way to connect with them. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you found this episode helpful, I would greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart if you would leave a 5-star review. Your feedback means a lot to me, and it helps other parents find this podcast and decide that it's worth their time to listen to. And if you're tired of feeling stuck and scared and you're unsure what to do next, then schedule a Road to Recovery call with me. We will explore what is possible for you and your family with support from somebody who truly understands. You don't have to go through this alone. The Road to Recovery call link is in the show notes on my website, and there is still time to sign up for the needs based scholarship to my Peace of Mind group coaching program, that the Helena Johnson Memorial Scholarship that I'm doing in her honor. The link to that is in the show notes. And until next time, remember that taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it is a necessity, because you matter too.